Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the UK MSW Forum's fourth CPD session of the year. Before starting the session, please let me go through the Zoom ethics. This session is fully recorded and uploaded in our YouTube channel. Please leave your camera on and mute your audio during the session. I kindly request all the participants to change their name to accordingly as registered. And there will be a question and answer session at the end of the sessions, and you will be given opportunity to ask the questions accordingly. Enjoy your session for today's session. Over to you, Vijay Anthony, to begin the session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sheena. Hope I'm audible. First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know we have got some time differences, so that's the reason why we couldn't start an exact on time. So some of our participants are joining us from India, so that's why we gave that 10 minutes break, gap between. So first and foremost, I take this opportunity to thank you for showing interest in our CPD sessions, which is aimed to support aspiring social workers who is looking for a career in the UK, as well as those who are in the UK currently undertaking social worker-related roles. So these sessions are hybrid in nature. We normally focus on people, these two categories of people, but also we need to look at what is the need for our profession, because we are coming from a different background. We have got different interest, different cultural background, different educational backgrounds when you come to the UK. So to get a job in the UK as a social worker sometimes is a challenging one. So that's the reason why we conduct these sessions. These are ongoing sessions, as you know from previous sessions, that we're trying to bring some kind of understanding or familiarize you with the social work practices within the UK, so which is entirely different from what we do in India. So that you are abrupt with what is the current practices in the UK are, and you are able to seek job and security in here. So I'm not going to prolong my speech or anything here, but because you are all waiting to hear from Soosan and Arminda about the sessions they're going to provide. The first one we're going to have is Social Work England registration. As you know, this is a regulatory requirement that anybody who is looking for a job in the UK as a social worker should be registered with a regulatory body. And in the UK, we have got 4 states, as you know, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, and they have all got their own regulatory bodies. But predominantly, we are looking at Social Work England registration process today, because that's the most of the processes are similar, but with the slight variations. But because we have got a lot of people from England, we will be focusing on the Social Work England registration process. If you've got any questions, you can ask at the end. Soosan will be available to answer. But please remember, we won't be able to answer individual questions, like related to your personal circumstances with regard to your application, but we will be only able to give a generic overview of the process. Secondly, we've got Araminda, who is a very experienced social worker in our social care. She'll be presenting effective partnership working in social work, which is a key theme within social work, because those who are working in social work will know that making that partnership work is a hard task. Sometimes, you have to build that confidence, you have to build that trust, and that effective working leads the progress in the work you do. So it's a very important aspect of a social work role. So Araminda will be focusing on those aspects. Those who are not in social work yet, will be a good opportunity to listen, because that's some of the questions that will be asked in the interviews as well. So even if you are not in social work currently, that will be a great opportunity to listen to. So without further ado, I welcome you all to this session and hand over to Soosan, who is a lecturer senior lecturer in Northampton University in social work, will be leading our social work England registration process sessions. So welcome, Soosan, to the session.
Soosan. Please bear with us. Thank you. Good morning, all. I think Susan is having some issues with her internet connection. I will try to do something else. Please bear with me.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining for the CPD session. For the next hour, I'll be talking through the process of getting registered with Social Work England. I have gathered the information by reading through Social Work England website and also having experience of supporting people throughout the process of getting registered with Social Work England. So if you are planning to practice as a social worker in England, it is mandatory that you need to get registered with Social Work England. Social worker is a legally protected title in UK, and it is mandatory that as a social worker, you need to adhere to the professional standards of regulatory bodies in UK. In England, Social Work England is the regulatory body. In Wales, it's Social Care Wales, and in Scotland, it's Scottish Social Service Council. So each regulatory body has its own similarities in the process, and also the application process and language requirement might vary. So today I'll be going through the process of registering with Social Work England. However, if you require more clarity and specific guidance, please definitely. So I would like to go through essential requirements and documents for Social Work England registration. So you must have master degree or bachelor degree in social work. Also, you must have IELTS academic overall 7 score. So currently there is no guidelines about individual score at present, but before applying, please verify this with Social Work England in case their criteria would change. There is a course information form, so you need to complete the course information form. There is a form called updating skills and knowledge form. It's also known as USK form. Social Work England also require you to complete a professional statement. You need to attest your copy of mark list and course certificate. There is a, you should provide the proof of identity, including your address proof. You need to provide the details of your social work experience. And also it is necessary that you need to create an account with Social Work England. I will be going through, most of the forms. This is the link you can access to register an account with Social Work England, and also there are guidelines which you can read through. Also there is a contact number for Social Work England, and also there is an email address. Normally they would respond within 5 to 7 working days. So you can access course information form through this link. Course information form is a form where you put details of the placement and fieldwork you have undertaken during your social work course period, and also the details of each modules or the subject we have learned and the content of it. So this, once you complete this form need to be signed and sealed by the college. Okay, if you've been studied in the college, you need to get the sign and seal from the college. So when you're completing this form, the awarding body will be the university you have got award from, and the course provider will be the college where you have completed your social work degree. So the main content of the course information form is, one is general course details, which including your starting date and end date, number of days and hours you studied, etc., and the contact details of the college and the awarding body. Another section is about information on placement undertaken. Okay, so when I say placement in Indian context, it is field work. So it's about how many placement you have undertaken, and they are requesting for detailed description of each placement you have completed. And also about the academic modules. It's about the subject we have learned and the content related to it as well. So Social Work England guidance states that if your application and awarding body is listed with Social Work England, you may not require to complete this form. But however, according to my understanding, in later stages of the application process, Social Work England is asking everyone to complete this course information form. So I would suggest to prepare to complete this form in advance. And also, social work course in England, it is 50% of the time they are spending time in placement, and 50% of the time they are spending in classroom setting. So it means, according to Social Work England, 200 days, it is mandatory that you need to spend these days as placement days. So it's 170 days is placement days, and 30 days is a practical skill training session. So it's include 200 days. When we say that 200 days, 1 day is equal to 7 hours in a day. Okay, so when you are completing your course information form, Social Work England will be looking into whether you have completed 200 days in placement, including your practical skills days, which is not included, you're studying any particular module. So when they say that 200 days is not covered, in most of the situation when we study in India, normally we may have placement days up to 150, 160 days. So, 200 days, I never seen it. So any shortfall of these days, Social Work England would ask you to complete an updating skills and knowledge form. They will look through your practical experience and see whether you have met those days. However, most of the time they would ask you to complete an updating skills and knowledge form. So, when I say updating skills and knowledge form, you don't need to complete it while you are doing your first submission, but you need to get it prepared, because after the second stage of the application process, they will ask you to give that form. This is an abstract of course information form regarding placement. So you can see that they are requesting you to put details of the name of the organization, short description of the organization undertakes. So they want to clarify if your organization is in social work settings. Okay, for example, if you are putting something in something related to environment protection, okay, they might say that that is not a social work setting. And they are asking you to complete short description of the role and duties of the applicant undertook during the placement. So this is really important session. They are really matching your roles and responsibilities with social work context placement in UK setting. So you need to be really careful, and also need to get familiar with the terminologies used in UK settings when you're translating your placement context to UK setting experience. Information about statutory duties undertaken. So this is where normally applicants get confused. Okay, social work is a statutory profession in UK, and in UK we are working with lots of law, legislation and guidance. Okay, according to Social Work in England, they are requesting us to have a mandatory placement, 1 or 2 statutory settings where you can implement the law, you can work with the law. So you need to identify which of your placement has these opportunities. For example, if you have worked in childline, probably that is mandatory according to Indian Conduct of Legislation, and also there is Mental Health Act. So you need to identify which legislation underpin your practice in social work, and if it is been a statutory legal setting, that you need to incorporate as well. Placement assistant supervised by social worker. So every time you need to put S towards it, otherwise it may not be a valid placement. It means every placement need to be supervised by a qualified social worker. So you need to put start date, you need to put end date, and you need to put total number of hours. When we say approximately 1 day is equal to 7 hours, you can make it up 8 hours if you worked into 8 hours. Okay, and you need to put total number of days in that particular placement. Course information form asking you to complete information on academic modules undertaken as well. So easiest way to get is you get your syllabus, okay, and you will see the short description and content of the module there. Okay, when we say module, it is linked to each subject you have learned. For example, if you have learned history and philosophy of social work, or social work, casework, group work, and other methods of social work, so you need to put each subject which is in your mark list and also add short description of it. So that short description, normally you get it from your syllabus. And also you need to approximately add how many hours you studied. Normally you will get it from the syllabus as well. Assessment method, if there has been viva, you can put yes towards it. Verbal means viva. If there is written exams, and also if there have been any practical test like role plays, you can add towards it as well. So taken at this institution, we normally say yes towards it. So there are so many module number you can see. It is not mandatory that you need to complete all module numbers. You can see up to 25 or 30. But however, depends upon how many subject you have learned, you need to add all the subject including your specialization towards it. So if you have sometimes Social Work England accept, if you have a separate syllabus attached to it, rather than putting this in course information form, you can say that after adding the placement information, I have attached syllabus. So some of the time they would accept that. So ideally it is really a good practice. You put all these information in a course information form so that it can avoid any confusion. It is really, really important that you get familiar with Social Work England professional standards before you start your application, because your application will be assessed against Social Work England professional standards. They will be looking through your application, including the subject you have studied, and also the placement you have undertaken, the roles and responsibilities you have undertaken, and your work experience, and how this links to Social Work England standards. So if they find that you have not met any particular standard, they might ask you for further information, and also may close the application, and they will ask you to come back after you met those standards. Okay, so if you read through Social Work England standards, there are 6 standards as you can see it now. So one is promote the rights, strength and well-being of people, families and communities. Each standard has its own subsections where you need to click the link. You can see the subsections as well. So, for example, on the first one, promote the rights and strength and well-being of people, families and communities. It is where you are evidencing your ability to work with the people, advocating for their rights, and able to identify their strength. For example, using a strength-based approach, and you are working towards to meet the well-being outcome of the people and the communities. So they want to see this evidence either from your placement and also from your work experience. Okay, so second one, establish and maintain trust and confidence of people. This is about how you build trust with people. When you're working with people, it's more around your communication skills. It's more around a social work as a relationship based approach. Okay, so you need to really get familiar with social work theories, because social work theories inform our practice. So if you Google social work theories, models and approach, you will see the relevant theories, models and approaches used in social work settings. So you need to get familiar with that. When you say that I maintain trust and confidence of people, or I make I am able to communicate with people effectively, you need to evidence how you were able to do it and what theories underpin your action. For example, if you're working with families, or if you are working with a child who has got developmental needs, you might be applying system theories in practice. So you need to get familiar with theories, models and approaches used in social work setting, so that when you write something, you can say that this is how I have done it, and this is a reason I have practiced in a particular manner. Be accountable for the quality of practice and the decision I make. This is more in relation to your judgment call, your ability, and your communication skills, and also your in-depth understanding of the legislation, okay, and the decision-making process involving risk assessment, etc. Maintain my continuing professional development. This is how you are reflecting on your practice, you're reading, your research, you are participating in the training. So this is something you need to clearly evidence that you are learning on daily basis, and you are committed towards your continuing professional development. Act safely, respectfully, with professional integrity. This is somewhere, as a social worker, you are upholding social work reputation. You are not acting against social work values, and also, your understanding of the safe practice, anti-discriminatory practice, etc. Promote ethical practice and report concern. This is mainly around you are standing up for social justice, and also if there is any allegations against you, your willingness to participate within the investigation. So you need to clearly look through 6 professional standards, as it is really important, because during your final assessment of the application, they will be assessing your application against each criteria of Social Work England standards and how you have met each criteria. So as I have said before, each professional standards have subsections. So I have put one as an example. For example, standard 1, which is promoting right and strength of people and communities and promoting the well-being, it has sub-standards attached to it. So as it is standard 1, it says standard 1 and the point 1.1, 1.2, and it goes up to 1.7. So you need to get familiar with the terminologies they have used. So when you write something, including your course information form or updating skills and knowledge form, you need to evidence how you have met this standard. For example, if you are looking into standard 1.7, recognize and use responsibility, the power and the authority I have when working with people, ensuring that my interventions are always necessarily the least intrusive, proportionate, and in people's best interest. So in UK context, social worker has power and authority. For example, working in children's settings, social worker has power and authority to decide what is the level of the significant harm the child is experiencing and what level of intervention the child is needed, where the child can be best protected in family home, or that the child need to be moved from the family home. So social worker has lots of legal power and roles and responsibilities associated with it. So what they are indicating here, that though we have the power attached to our role, we need to ensure that we only exercise our power when it is really needed. Okay, and our intervention need to be least intrusive and proportionate. So when you're translating your experience, social work experience to UK context, you need to be really careful of the terminologies you have used. For example, if you say that I allowed the service user to do a particular thing, so it means there is a power imbalance there, because the control is within you and you are giving the permission. So that is not acceptable in social work, according to social work value, because we are working with people. Okay, so it's not something like we are exercising power over them. And also, if you are saying that I have solved their problem, okay, so we normally use these terminologies back in India. You need to be really careful. You need to think that as a social worker, I am working with people and they are expert in their life and I am not a problem solver for them. Okay, so the terminologies you use need to make sure that address the power imbalance. So actually, when you start to put an application, so you need to register with Social Work England and you need to create an account for registering with Social Work England. And when you create an account, you can see that there will be a space for adding your personal details, including your date of birth, address, and also your course start date, end date, and year of completion, and also your work experience linked to it. And there will be a space to complete and upload IELTS certificates, and also there will be some space for the additional documents as well. So what I would suggest is, when you submit your first application form registering with Social Work England, including your mark list, course certificates, and IELTS, also try to submit the course information form with that, and also a professional statement linked to your practice as well. So I will be explaining it into later slides. So during your application process, Social Work England will be assessing your application against Social Work England standards, and they will be closely evaluating whether you have met these standards, both from your placement side and your work experience. Okay, so normally after you first submit your application via Social Work England account, up to 3 months, you may not hear back from them completely. So after 3 months, They will ask you for further information. That might be including updating skills and knowledge form. It might be including clarification around your placement, your course provider. So normally they will only give you 28 days time to send these forms, the additional requirement forms. So what I would suggest is try to prepare this updating skills and knowledge form or any other relevant details in advance, so that within the 28 days when they ask this information, you can submit it on the time. So some of the things you need to be really mindful. Some of the placement setting, they may not accept this as a social work setting. For example, placement in an environment protection setting. And also, if you put your work experience as a counselor, school counselor, or a mental health counselor, or a project manager, they may not see this as a social work experience, because counselor is a job for a psychologist in UK. Okay, so there is a clear definition of what is a social worker role and a psychologist role. And also the role of a project manager, they may not accept it until and unless you are able to clearly evidence what is social work involved in it. And also anything related to conduct a campaigning or something like that, probably they may not consider this as social work. So you need to be really careful when you are translating your social work experience and your placement into social work UK context. So, and it is really important to get familiar with social work theories, apply both in children and adult setting. So when you write something, you can clearly evidence you understand the social work theories behind it. So try to read through some social work theories which you might be already familiar with. For example, systems theory, social learning theory, social model of disability, learned helplessness, child developmental theory. So there are lots of theories underpin social work practice. So try to learn and develop your understanding of social work theories, and some approaches like person-centered approach, strength-based approach, and also science of safety model, etc. So when you read through Social Work England guidance, for the application process, you can see that they are asking you to write a letter explaining how you have met Social Work England standard, both from your placement and work experience. So I would suggest try to write this letter in advance and try to submit this along with your application. So don't worry about writing in each heading Social Work England Standard 1, 2, 3, 4 and explaining. What I would suggest, if you want to write it general, that's fine, but each situation you need to write which standard you have met. For example, this is an example I can show you how the person has wrote when how they have met standard 3, which is be accountable for the quality of practice and the decision I make. So this writing is in line with taking a decision regarding to a service user treatment, either in a psychiatric setting or home setting, and a social worker, how social worker concluded a decision. Okay, so there is no recommendation that how many what is the word count of the letter. However, if it is me, I would write something between 1000 to 1500 words, and I will try to incorporate that how I have met each standard. Probably you can provide 1 or 2 example of explaining how you have met standard. So you can use combination of your placement experience and also your work experience to demonstrate this. So as I am talking through lots of information, you might be getting bored. You might be thinking that, is it achievable to get registered with Social Work England? To be honest with you, be resilient. Definitely, if you go through the process, you will get registered with Social Work England. In earlier times, it was a bit more easier. It was not, this much lengthy process. However, as Social Work England is the regulatory body, they want to make sure that each applicant, who is from overseas, has got similarities as social workers studies in UK and practice in UK. Okay, so we have already covered course information form, how to complete the course information form, and also briefly touched upon the professional statement. The next one is updating skills and knowledge, that is also known as USK form. Okay, so recently Social Work England is asking everyone to complete this form. Okay, it can be because of 2 reasons. One reason is our course doesn't include 200 days of placement. Okay, another one is Social Work England is not clear within our recent 1 year experience how we have met Social Work England professional standards. Okay, so updating skills and knowledge form is linked to supervised practice. When I say supervised practice, your practice under a qualified social worker. Okay, for example, if you are a qualified social worker from overseas, currently you are in UK, but you have not worked as a social worker for more than 1 year. Okay, they will ask you to practice under a qualified social worker, and they will ask you to complete a updating skills and knowledge form. So it can be either 30 days or it can be 60 days. So they normally advise you how many days you need to complete after they give you the first response to your application. It means after 3 months of your submitting application, they would say that you need to complete either 30 days or 60 days. In my experience, if you have completed qualification within 5 years, they would ask you to complete 30 days of supervised practice. If it is completed within more than 5 years, they would ask you to complete 60 days of supervised practice. So be prepared to do the supervised practice. If you are in UK, currently in UK, try to approach social workers who can provide you social work supervised practice, and the practice setting either need to be in a social work context or in social care context where you can safely practice most of the role involved in social work. So normally practice educators offer use of supervised practice, and they may ask you a charge from it because they are spending time and hours with you. So if you are in India, try to do the supervised practice under a qualified social worker. If you are working in a social work setting already, you probably need to complete this form in line with how you have practiced according to Social Work England standard. So if you Google and search for Social Work England updating skills and knowledge form, you will see a Word document which is explaining updating skills and knowledge form. So when you go through the form, you can see some of the relevant section, which including personal details. That's including, your name, date of birth, when you start updating skills and knowledge, etc. Then they are asking your supervisor details. So if it is in UK, definitely that supervisor need to be registered with Social Work England. That need to be a registered practitioner having more than 3 years of experience. If you are completing this form from India, where you are working as a social worker or practicing under social worker, you need to make sure that that social worker have more than 3 years experience as a social worker and also currently practicing as a social worker. When they write their current job role, is need to be clearly indicate that they work as a social worker rather than a project coordinator or a counselor. So then there is a session about supervised practice. It is about how many days you have completed the practice. I will go through the form in next slide. And there is a session about the private study. Private study includes, the training and your own reading and research. And there is a session about formal study. That is only applicable if your study is closely linked to social work, and it is mandatory that as part of your social work experience, you need to undertake this study. Otherwise, they won't consider this formal study. Okay, so if you are qualified between 2 and 5 years, it will be around 30 days. It is equal to 210 hours. And if you are qualified more than 5 years, they normally ask you for 60 days. It's equal to 420 hours. So according to Social Work England, they say that a good example of supervised practice and the updating skills and knowledge form, including below a day-to-day list of activity. Each day, what's the social work activity you have completed? Okay, and confirmation of hours, and activities are similar to listed in UK application guidance. So it's really important you click on that. Then you will see that, social work intervention based on advocacy, promoting human right, case working. So it is more closely linked to how you have practiced according to social work UK context. Okay, and also they prefer a variety of activities linked to it, and a detailed description of the activity without much repetition. And also it is mandatory that need to be signed off by an experienced social worker. For example, that social worker either offline, for example, they either that person can be working in that setting or can work in a different setting, but would provide you supervision on weekly basis. So that need to be signed off by an experienced social worker. So if the Social Work England asks you to complete supervised practice and updating skills and knowledge form for 60 days, half of the percentage for example 60 days, 30 days you can include it as a supervised practice. You can include more than 30 days, but minimum of 30 days you need to include this as a supervised practice. If they ask you to complete 30 days, minimum of 15 days need to be a supervised practice. So this is an example given by Social Work England. For example, a date and hours completed, and an example of what you have done in a particular dates regarding an completing an assessment. Okay, and they are asking to complete this form prior to a date of submission. The submission date, for example, if you submit the application on 30th of March, they are asking to complete the form a year, stretching from 30th of March towards the previous year. This is another example given by Social Work England about another day of practice. It's just 2 hours. It is regarding a care act assessment. So you might be thinking, if you are in India, how do I write? So instead of care act assessment, you could say that you have completed an assessment. When you say you have completed an assessment, try to read about what is a social work assessment look like, either in children's setting or adult setting, and what was your approach towards assessment. For example, whether you have considered a particular model like exchange model of assessment, or whether you have completed a narrative model, and also how you have considered the comprehensive need of the child or an adult you are assessing. So you need to put that into social work context when you are writing the description. This is another example of a supervised activity provided by Social Work England, and this is linked to case recording. You can take time to read through it. Only thing is, these are the example given by Social Work England. Never try to copy it from them. Try to develop your own case examples. Okay, so you can put case recording, but how you have done case recording, that need to give your own explanation how you have done this according to Social Work England standards. Then after the supervised activity completion, you can see a space in updating skills and knowledge form to complete the private study. As I said before, private study can formulate half of the required supervised days. Okay, so you can increase number of supervised days, and you can probably balance this with the private study days. So there is no, it doesn't need to be 50-50, but minimum of 50% supervised practice should be the practical. Okay, private study can add up to 50%. So private study include reading journals, articles, or library books, reading information on relevant website, observing or shadowing social worker, attending training courses, reflecting on and recording your learning. For example, if you have recorded your learning about your reflection on reading a particular book. For example, you have read about importance of professional curiosity in social work practice. Okay, your reflecting journal states that how you have applied that into practice. So Social Work England doesn't want to see your reflective account. They want to see the evidence that you have done it. Okay, so you can say that you have read through the books. Definitely you need to read through the books, and also you can say that what's your reflection based on that. So this is one of the example of private study given by Social Work England. You can see it in their website as well. So we can see that they, the applicant read about case studies and also reflect about importance of communication styles and how they have adapted communication styles according to service user needs. So what you need to clearly understand that you need to complete the private study or supervised practice for the required days. So you need to detail each day relating to the hours you have completed. So the possible outcome of your application, they, as I said before, after 3 months of the submission, they will ask you for the additional details. Once you provide additional details, they will put for full assessment. And if they are satisfied with the full assessment, they will issue a registration. Otherwise, other possible outcome can be, if they are not satisfied with the information detailed on the updating skills knowledge form, they will ask you further details. Okay, and how this linked to Social Work England standard. And also sometimes they will ask you more evidence. For example, updating skills and knowledge form is completed in a good standard, and they are happy with your placement as well. But when they are assessing it, they might find that a particular section has not been met. Okay, so they will write you and state that this particular section has not met. Can you please provide some additional information how you have met this session? So that wouldn't take much time. If you explain how you have met that particular Social Work England standard, your application will be successful at later stage. Okay, sometimes if you are not completely satisfied with your application, they may close your application and they may ask you to complete supervised practice and put application again within 1 year. So if they close application like that, they will say that you are eligible for a fee waiver as well. So there might be a link when you apply for next time, you can access for the fee waiver. It means you don't need to put additional application fees when you apply for the second time. But I think that is within the 1 year context. So in case if everything is completed and if they are not sure how you have met Social Work England standard, they may ask you to do an aptitude test where they will give you a case scenario before in advance to prepare and attend an interview. In rare cases, they would ask you to do that. Otherwise, they will ask you to do a 6 months of adaptation and run experienced social worker and complete an application after that. So these can be possible outcomes. However, so please be reassured that you will get the social worker registration if you complete the application in an appropriate manner. So as I have advised before, I would strongly suggest before completing application, read through Social Work England registration guidance, and their requirement may change according to the time. So try to read through the guidance and also thoroughly understand Social Work England standards, and also try to get familiar with social work context in the UK and terminologies linked to it. Try to speak to social workers who is practicing here, and also try to read through the serious case reviews. If you say serious case review in children's setting or adult setting in the UK, try to read through the case reviews where you can find the case study examples. And also make sure your placement and your current job meet the social work context in UK, and try to translate your job role which is similar to social work job role in UK context. So unfortunately, registration process is not that easier nowadays, and it can take up to 6 months to 1 year. So be resilient, never give up. Okay. Never copy information used by someone else. That can lead to plagiarism and you might get banned from Social Work England. Okay, if somebody has completed updating knowledge and skills form, never copy it from them. Okay, read and research social work context in UK, and there is no quick fix for us. So you need to go through this process to get registered with Social Work England. One main reason behind is social work course in UK is really intense. I teach on social work course. I can understand how intense it is compared to where I learned social work. Okay, there are strengths associated with social work I have learned from India, but social work course is really intense. So they want to make it fair to everyone that as they are applying particular standard to Social Work England, they want to make sure that social workers coming from abroad also meeting the same standard expected by Social Work England. Have you got any questions? Hello?
I kindly request all the participants to mute their mic.
And probably they can put their questions in chat box.
If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box, please.
There is no specific guidance, is it IELTS academic or UKVA academic? The website says that it should be IELTS academic. We cannot say how many levels of the review. Normally, after you submit your first level of application, after 3 months, they will review your application and they will request you some additional information that can be including details of your course information form, placements, and also updating skills and knowledge form. And probably sometimes they would ask you to write the professional statement as well. So after you submit all the required documents, according to my experience, it would take another couple of months for them to give a response.
Susan, do you want to read the questions to you? which may be
Yeah,
easier.
could you please? Yeah, that will be
Okay.
helpful. Yeah.
There is one question from Jitu Thomas. Is it computer-based or paper-based IELTS will considered for
There's
the
no guidance whether it's need to be computer-based or paper-based. As long as it is IELTS academic and it says overall 7 score, that's fine.
Another question is from Anju Matthew. I think Anju Syrian Matthew. What are the other practices other than child-related social work could apply for?
Okay, the practices like social workers working in mental health setting, social workers working in adult care setting and children setting. So there are many practices which is linked to social work.
There is another question from Krishna Kumari. Can she able to show the experience as an assistant professor in social work for registration? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, yes, we can show us as long as it is the professor job role in social work course. Yeah.
Next question is from Subin Skaria. He's working as a public health project. Does the experience count as a social work experience?
As it is a public health project, depends upon what is the social work role in relation to it. Okay, if it is addressing pandemic or any kind of health issues, that may not count as social work role. That should be particularly regarding any safeguarding aspect of it, any social work aspect of it, assessment side of it, and anything in relation to high risk decision making.
The next question is from Anna George. Is the course information form is the same as transcript?
It is different. Okay, the information from transcript you can use to course information form. If you Google Social Work England and course information form, you can see a Word document, and it's clearly start with the course details, your details, and the placement details and the module you are learning. So there are similarities because it is attached to syllabus, but that is not transcript.
Just please bear with me because it's a lot of questions coming.
Yeah,
so just trying to.
We need to put a cap on it. So I think now we need to answer all the questions, and probably I don't know whether we have time for answering new questions.
I will take a couple of questions which I can see from the chat box.
Okay.
There is another question from Manjima George. For a student who recently completed MSW from India with no job experience, is it possible to apply for the registration with just field work experience?
It is possible for apply for registration as long as they have completed the course, but they will ask the updating skills and knowledge form. It means they need to have a particular number of days of experience and run experience social worker. It can be either 30 or 60. So it means they need to work in a social work setting, minimum of 30 days, 60 days with an experienced social worker, and they need to complete the updated skills and knowledge form, and that need to link to social work standards in UK.
I think the questions is tracing one by one. It's getting excessively.
You can read through it. Yeah, probably another 5-8 minutes. Yeah.
So shall I continue?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, there is another question from Akila Renison. Is it possible to add BSW internship experience too, or only MSW experience?
It can be both BSW and MSW.
Another question is from Jitu Thomas. He's working as a community development sector and more into a climate change situation. I think he's working in the development sector. What is his scope to getting an assessment successfully?
Definitely he need to work in a social work setting. He may struggle to reason and explain, what is his social work role in climate setting.
So I think I can little bit explain that things because I worked in the community development sector back home a couple of years ago. So basically you need to consult your senior manager level, then they need to assess that your qualification, and also you need to make sure that your job title is closely related to the social work, then it will be counted as a social work in the England.
Yeah, so because particularly now, particularly nowadays, they are really specific about it. They want to see your experience of working with people, completing assessment, need assessment, risk assessment, decision making, etc. So it's like how you would be able to evidence it.
There is another. Okay, sorry. It's very small transcripts. I'm just struggling. Sorry about that. There is another question is from Krishna Kumari. How many years of minimum experience is required for the registration process?
There is no recommendation about that. As long as you complete the course successfully and you can evidence updating skills and knowledge for 30 days or 60 days, you can apply for registration.
Okay, I just go through the 3 more questions now. So this next question is from Amal Baby. Is the applicant working in UK mental health sector as a support worker for 1 year, and is there is any expectations for IELTS?
I'm really sorry, I missed that question.
Is the applicant working in the UK mental health sector as a support worker for more than an year? Is there is any expectation for IELTS?
Of course, IELTS is mandatory in current situation.
Sorry, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
He asking any exception for the 1 year experience in mental health sector in working in UK. Can we get any exception, exemption from the IELTS for that one? That case.
I don't. I think in in all situations they are asking IELTS currently. So
IELTS is mandatory.
IELTS is mandatory. Yeah. If they want more clarification, they can write to Social Work England.
There is another question from Harida Rajan. Can she practice as a social worker in child protection in India as count as an experience? I think that's what she meant for. I'm not 100% sure what she exactly mentioning for.
Yeah, child protection experience in India definitely is a social work experience.
Susan, I think Sheena missed the 2 questions, previous one. Sanimol Catherine, thank you for the information session. Are there any sources to receive supervised practice?
There are sources for receiving supervised practice if it is in the UK. You could contact social workers who have more than 3 years experience. You could contact practice educators. So they might be willing to give supervised practice. There might be a fees linked to it.
Okay, thank you. And another question from Semichan Joseph. If the candidate has higher degree in social work, PhD, any specific requirements for that?
If they have PhD in social work.
I don't know one.
Okay. Regardless whether you have a PhD or master degree in social work, the assessment process is same.
Okay.
There is no difference, to be honest.
There is no difference to it.
There is another question from Lima Martin. I think it's something related to her personal, application to Social Work England, and she's halfway through the process, and they have asked to revise the updating skill knowledge. Do you think
she can send me an email? Okay, please provide my email address. She can send me an email. I'll support her.
Okay, Lima, can you send an email to the ukmsw1@gmail.com? I can send the details link here. Then we can transfer to Susan to get the more information about this.
Okay, is that okay?
I think they're all questions answered at the moment.
Okay, yep. Thank you then. Thank you so much.
Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I hope you were staying with us.
Well, it will be helpful as I am traveling. It will be helpful if I could continue with that.
Okay. Can people please mute their mic? Hi, Susan.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for the very informative session related to the Social Work England registration. And if we have any further question from any of the participants, we will get in touch with you and you will be able to provide more information about that. So thank you so much once again for the wonderful and informative session.
And thank you for participating as well. Thank you.